What if I told you a normal-looking four-door sedan could have 2,000 horsepower and still fail to reach 300 miles per hour? I'll show you the real reason. 300 miles per hour is basically impossible for a sedan, and why even the fastest sedans on Earth are nowhere close. When people hear fast sedan, they think of cars like the M5, E63, Charger Hellcat, CT5, V Blackwing. Ridiculous power, supercar acceleration. For doors. So here's the real question. Why hasn't anyone ever built a 300 miles per hour sedan? The answer has almost nothing to do with horsepower. Stick around. At 60 mph, air barely matters. At 120 mph, it starts to matter. At 200 mph, air becomes a wall. At 300 mph, air becomes your biggest enemy. Here's the problem. A sedan is designed to carry people, comfort, and luggage, which means tall roofline, big windshield, wide cabin, thick pillars. All of that creates something engineers hate: the frontal area. It's not just drag coefficient. It's how much car the air has to move around. And drag doesn't rise slowly, it rises with the square of speed. Double your speed, you don't double drag. You multiply it. So going from 200 miles per hour to 300 miles per hour isn't a 50% jump. It's a massive physics wall. That's why hypercars look like needles, teardrops, flat wedges. Sedans look like buildings. Now here's where sedans get trapped. At extreme speeds you need downforce. Because at 250 miles per hour, even small lift makes the car feel light. Light is terrifying, but downforce creates drag. And sedans already start with a huge drag disadvantage. So engineers face a brutal trade-off. If you add big wings and aggressive aero to a sedan, you keep it planted, but you destroy top speed. If you remove downforce to chase speed, the car becomes unstable and unsafe. This is why race cars that go fast in corners look completely different from cars that chase top speed. Sedans sit in the worst middle ground. Here's something most people don't realize. At 300 miles per hour, power is not your main problem. Control is. A sedan has longer roof, larger side profile, more surface for crosswind. At extreme speed, even a small gust of wind can push the car sideways. Now imagine, for doors, thin B-pillars, large glass area. The body itself becomes a sail. That's why 300 miles per hour cars are extremely low, extremely narrow, extremely stiff. A sedan's structure is designed for comfort, safety, and daily driving, not for controlling airflow at half the speed of sound. Now this is the part nobody likes to talk about. There are only a handful of tires in the world, rated for 300 miles per hour, and those tires are designed for very light cars, very controlled aero, very specific loads. A sedan is heavy. A performance sedan is very heavy. Batteries, luxury interiors, sound insulation, big brakes. Now add, for passengers and luggage. The tire load rating becomes the real limiter. At 300 miles per hour, tire failure is not dramatic. It's instant. That alone kills almost every sedan idea. To reach 300 miles per hour, you need absurdly long gearing, ultra-strong drivetrains, and extremely narrow efficiency windows. Sedans are built for stop-and-go traffic, launches, overtakes, and daily drivability. So their transmissions are optimized for acceleration, not for sitting at 280 miles per hour for 30 seconds. Regearing a sedan for 300 miles per hour usually ruins acceleration, cooling, and durability, which defeats the entire purpose of a performance sedan. Here's a weird paradox. At high speed, you get lots of air, but you don't get useful air. At 300 miles per hour, airflow becomes extremely sensitive. You need massive cooling for engine intercoolers, gearbox, differential, and brakes. Sedans hide most of their cooling behind grills and bumpers that were never shaped for 300 miles per hour airflow. Hypercars build the entire body around cooling tunnels. Sedans build cooling around styling. That difference matters a lot. Here's the truth. A sedan is not designed to be fast in one direction. It's designed to be good at everything: comfort, noise, safety, space, and practicality. Every single one of those goals adds mass and compromises shape. At 300 miles per hour, compromise is your enemy. Hypercars are allowed to be terrible daily cars. Sedans are not. Could someone build a one-off 300 miles per hour sedan? Technically. Maybe. But here's the catch. The moment you solve the problems, you lower the roof, you shrink the cabin, you narrow the body, you rebuild the structure, you redesign the aero. It stops being a sedan. It becomes a hypercar with 4 doors. So 300 miles per hour isn't impossible for cars. It's almost impossible for sedans. Because sedans fight physics from the very first sketch. They're too tall, too wide, too heavy, and too honest about what they're meant to be. Fast family cars, not land speed machines. Subscribe if you love cars.